A male high school student who committed suicide due to school bullying. Unexpectedly, a gangster boss soul swapped into his body. He is provoked due to his youthful appearance. The reborn boss warns them to shower before entering the bathhouse. Two thugs look disdainful.
이 코딱지만한 새끼 손가락을 잘라서 꼼꼼하게 쳐박아가 대장 수장 12장 여기 지방이다!
The boss uses just one move to subdue the opponent. He notices the gang name tattooed on the thug's arm and reveals his own name.
칠성파 넘버2 김득팔.
Dukpal possesses a great boss demeanor. He gives them some money and warns them to abide by public moral order. However, even the most powerful boss has secrets. The math problems in the third year of high school are just too difficult, even harder than taking a life. Before gangster boss Kim Dukpal's rebirth, he had a dream. That's to get into college, to experience being a college student. To fulfill this dream, in the gaps between fights, Dukpal asks teachers for help with his studies. Even on his way to the hospital for bandaging, he never forgets to memorize English words. It's practically an industry legend, but he fails the exams again. Moreover, the leader of the Chilsung gang wants to retire. If Dukpal becomes the boss, he will have even less time to study. He decides to go out and have some fun. Unexpectedly, he encounters high school student Song Yi-hyun seeking death. Dukpal rushes over to stop it, but he's still too late. At a critical moment, a car crashes into Dukpal. When he regains consciousness, he realizes he has become high school student Song Yi-hyun, and his gang subordinate Dong-soo, believed that he caused Dukpal's death, actually seeks revenge at the hospital. Dong-soo drags the reborn Dukpal to the funeral scene. Only then does Dukpal understand that this is not a dream. The second in command of the Chilsung gang has actually turned into a high school student. Dukpal can't explain and leave. He must find a way to regain his identity. Dukpal wants to find his body in the morgue, but no matter what method he tries, his soul can't reset. Shortly after, Dukpal runs back to the crime scene, preparing to die again. Apart from falling half dead, the method is useless. When he regains consciousness from coma, his original body has already been cremated. Dukpal returns to the hospital. He looks at the ward. He thinks to himself, does this kid have no family? Why didn't anyone come to visit when he almost died? In the next moment, a woman appears, but from the tone of her words, she seems to be Song Yi-hyun's father's secretary, and she looks down on Song Yi-hyun and his mother. She comes to scold Song Yi-hyun a few words, and then leaves. She doesn't care about Song Yi-hyun's condition. Dukpal can't go back to the past now. He can only try to adapt to his new identity. He uses facial recognition to open Song Yi-hyun's tablet. He discovers the diary written by Song Yi-hyun. It almost infuriates Dukpal. Song Yi-hyun had been suffering from school bullying by Hong Jae-min's group. They instructed Song Yi-hyun to steal alcohol and jewelry from his own home, and made him steal cigarettes from convenience stores. He would be beaten if he didn't cooperate. In such a school life, Song Yi-hyun had always wanted to be friends with Se Kyung in his class, because the other person had excellent grades and a good reputation. Unexpectedly, Song Yi-hyun's desires were discovered by Hong Jae-min. He spread rumors, saying that Song Yi-hyun was a psychopath. No one in the whole school gets close to him, but the more Song Yi-hyun endures, the more excessive Hong Jae-min becomes. Se Kyung also watches Song Yi-hyun suffering coldly. The school gradually turns into hell, eventually pushing Song Yi-hyun to a dead end. Dukpal suddenly realizes, why did God let him enter the boy's body? It's for the sake of revenge, to teach those bullies a lesson on behalf of Song Yi-hyun. Determined, Dukpal goes to Song Yi-hyun's house. Unexpectedly, the other person is a rich second generation. His father is the chairman of OK Construction, but Song Yi-hyun is just an illegitimate child, and his mother is an alcoholic. She is bullied by Secretary Lee, and doesn't take care of her own son. The nanny tells Dukpal, I heard the legitimate chairman's wife has been hospital recently. If she unfortunately passes away, you'll be the chairman's only son. That's why Secretary Lee is afraid of your mother. She wants to take the wife's place. That's why she sends alcohol here. The driver sent this time has been monitoring Song Yi-hyun's mother. Dukpal quickly grasps the situation. Although Song Yi-hyun and his mother live in a big house, they use credit cards with unlimited limits, and have a driver for transportation. It also means that their every move, every expense is monitored by others. They are completely dependent on others. Since Dukpal wants to change all of this, he has to start from the basics. He planned to cut his hair first, Duk Pal thought about shaving his head completely, but the hairdresser said shaving his head would be seen as rebellious by the school. Teachers and classmates wouldn't like it, so Duk Pal gave up on that idea. He just cut his hair into a neat short style. Shortly after, he went to the bookstore to buy a few sets of study guides. He unexpectedly ran into Se Kyung, but Duk Pal couldn't recognize the person yet, so he didn't greet the other person. Se Kyung saw him choosing study guides, and proactively recommended a few books. He even helped Duk Pal carry his things. Duk Pal thought this young person was really nice. Some time passed. He finally removed the cast and started exercising. The summer vacation ended. It was time for the new school year to begin. Duk Pal took a private car to go to school, but the driver suddenly stopped halfway, because the young master had instructed before that he didn't like getting off at the school gate. Duk Pal felt a pang of sadness. He instructed the driver to stop at the school gate from now on. Returning to campus made Duk Pal excited, and on his first day of school, due to his neat hair and confident voice, he won the favor of the physical education teacher. Duk Pal quickly entered Son Yi-hyun's classroom, because it's a new semester. The seating arrangement hasn't been adjusted yet. He randomly found a place to sit. He sighed and thought the school facilities were really good, but the surrounding students didn't recognize Duk Pal at all. After all, Son Yi-hyun's hair covered most of his face, and he always kept his head down, so no one knew what he looked like. Se Kyung was also surprised when he saw Duk Pal. When they met at the bookstore, he thought he mistook him for someone else. When the teacher called the roll, the classroom erupted in chaos. Students were discussing, and no one expected the short-haired boy to be Son Yi-hyun. Hong Jae-min sneered disdainfully. As soon as the teacher left, he went over to pick a fight.
난 네가 너무 보고 싶었다. 재민아.
Hong Jae-min had his lackeys drag Duk Pal into the alley. Although Duk Pal wanted to teach those brats a lesson, the problem was that Son Yi-hyun's body wasn't agile. Duk Pal still got beaten up. Se Kyung seemed to have expected this. He took Duk Pal to the infirmary to treat his injuries. During that time, he asked why Duk Pal pretended not to recognize him at the bookstore. Duk Pal confirmed the name tag and realized that the person in front of him was Se Kyung, the top student mentioned in his diary. He decided to pretend to have amnesia, and claimed that he hadn't fully recovered from hitting his head. Se Kyung was puzzled, and withdrew his friendly attitude. He understood Son Yi-hyun's personality well. This person is definitely not Son Yi-hyun, but Se Kyung couldn't find any evidence. He couldn't expose Duk Pal to everyone yet. He could only send him back to the classroom for now. Duk Pal took out the 2 pencils he bought before the start of the semester. He looked at the girls around him, with highlighters and notepads. A few of them even planned to go to the stationery store together after class. Duk Pal expressed that he also wanted to go to the stationery store. So, after school, he waited by his luxury car. He invited 3 girls to go stationery shopping with him. Duk Pal also politely treated them to a meal. The 3 girls' hearts fluttered with excitement. Duk Pal looked at them as if they were his daughters. Although Duk Pal upgraded his equipment, he didn't have much talent in studying. However, he performed well in physical education class. He completely impressed the physical education teacher. On that day, Secretary Lee came to cause trouble again. She wanted to send Duk Pal to a boarding school.
저기요. 내가 어디 있을진 내가 정해. 당신이 아니라.
In fact, Secretary Lee had no real power, but it was because Son Yi-hyun was too kind that he allowed Secretary Lee to bully him. Of course, this woman was indeed not ordinary. She contacted Dong-soo, preparing to teach Duk Pal a lesson. Meanwhile, Se Kyung didn't give up. He started actively approaching Duk Pal, wanting to catch the other's mistake. Se Kyung's attitude also raised suspicion in Duk Pal. Why would a top student want to know his real identity? Are high school seniors really that free? Duk Pal discovered that Son Yi-hyun's academic performance was excellent. He didn't want to reveal his true ability in the mock exams. He had to catch up on his studies. Of course, Duk Pal didn't neglect his fitness. He often went to the gym right after school, and then he would go for a bath. So, the scene at the beginning of the movie happened. The new gang to which those 2 thugs belonged was actually recently formed by Dong-soo, and Hong Jae-min's group of bad students had been wanting to join Dong-soo. However, Duk Pal, who left the bathhouse earlier, was unaware of this. He just arrived home and saw Se Kyung. This guy used helping classmates with their studies as an excuse, and got Duk Pal's address from the teacher.
너 송현한테 왜 이렇게 집착해? 너 송현한테 뭔 짓 한 거냐?
It seems that there is indeed a secret between Song Yi-hyun and Se-kyung. The two haven't reached a conclusion yet. Song Yi-hyun's mother started to be roaring drunk. She hates herself for giving birth to this son. That's why she's trapped here and lost her freedom. Song Yi-hyun is really pitiful. Duk-pal embraced the woman in his arms, comforting her that it's not too late. You can still retrieve your previous life. Then he escorted Song Yi-hyun's mother upstairs to rest. He planned to accompany Se-kyung home. Meanwhile, Se-kyung took the strand of hair that fell from Song Yi-hyun's mother's chair. Duk-pal saw that Se-kyung didn't believe him, so he stopped pretending. He admitted that he wasn't Song Yi-hyun, but didn't disclose further details. At that moment, Se-kyung received a call from his father. He was extremely anxious because he missed the curfew. It turns out that the exemplary student Se-kyung has a controlling father. His father is a prosecutor. Se-kyung's father set the curfew time and installed a tracking app on Se-kyung's phone. He monitors his son's actions 24/7 and even controls Se-kyung's friendships. Living in such a high-pressure environment, it's easy for psychological problems to arise. The next day, Duk-pal went to school for classes. He was stopped by Hong Jae-min and his group. One of them, with dyed yellow hair, showed a video of them bullying Song Yi-hyun in the past, reminding Duk-pal not to forget. Duk-pal twisted the phone into a spiral. The video from earlier made him furious. He was determined to teach Hong Jae-min a lesson. Duk-pal kicked the opponent down. The other lackeys rushed in to avenge their leader. Duk-pal is a gang boss, and quickly defeated these high school students. He was having a great time, but was discovered and stopped by Se-kyung and the teacher, because Hong Jae-min has done too many bad things, and bullies others with his group of lackeys. The teacher spoke in support of Duk-pal, and planned to convene a school violence committee, to punish Hong Jae-min and his gang. Duk-pal felt a bit frustrated, because if there were such effective measures, why hadn't Song Yi-hyun applied for them? Soon he found out the reason. Because parents had to attend this committee. Song Yi-hyun's parents are unreliable, and there was no one to attend. And Hong Jae-min's gang wasn't afraid of the committee, because classmates were afraid of getting into trouble, and wouldn't testify for Song Yi-hyun. Duk-pal finally understood one thing: if they don't listen, then beat them until they do. People like Hong Jae-min need to be closely disciplined and kept close.
내일부터 학교 꼬박꼬박 안 나오면 다트반들 각오하고.
Although Duk-pal temporarily resolved the issue of school violence, the most critical moment was about to come. There were only 7 days left until the exams, and he had to improve his grades. On the other hand, Se-kyung collected hair samples from Duk-pal and his mother, but for a paternity test, they needed proof of family relationship and identification. Since both of them had opened up, Se-kyung sent the document names to Duk-pal, asking him to prepare the necessary documents. Duk-pal didn't know the reason behind Se-kyung's actions, so he called Jae-min for a conversation. He wanted to know the relationship between Song Yi-hyun and Se-kyung. Jae-min said, "You used to follow Se-kyung around all the time, maybe because he helped you report the school violence incidents to the school." However, Jae-min felt that Se-kyung was cunning, because when everyone said that Song Yi-hyun was a stalker, Se-kyung didn't help clarify the situation. Duk-pal became even more puzzled about what had happened. That caused Se-kyung's attitude towards Song Yi-hyun to change. Unfortunately, he didn't have much time left for contemplation. The mock exam has arrived, and Duk-pal did his best to complete the paper, but the results were terrible. He only slept 4 hours a day, studied all the time except for exercising, but his mind just couldn't grasp it. Apart from the questions taught by Se-kyung, Duk-pal got everything wrong, so he could only pester Se-kyung, begging the top student to study together. Several boys from other classes suddenly appeared, led by a person named Hyuni, a star player of the school basketball team. He not only invited Se-kyung to play basketball, but also wanted to form a study group, to study together during self-study sessions. While Duk-pal noticed that Se-kyung didn't have a good relationship with these people, it was evident that Hyuni wanted to study with the top student in the school. But why did Se-kyung seem afraid of them?
넌 왜 빼냐? 두 머린 내가 해도 되겠냐?
Se-kyung, knowing that Duk-pal had changed, said to Hyuni, "If Duk-pal joins the group, then I'll join too." The boys turned and left, whispering that Se-kyung was playing with a stalker. Duk-pal caught up with Hyuni, took his basketball, and suggested having a showdown on the court. When Duk-pal was the boss of the underworld, he envied the students playing basketball. He had been practicing since the age of 10, so he was very confident in his basketball skills. News of Duk-pal challenging Hyuni quickly spread. and people who wanted to watch the excitement gathered on the playground. Se-kyung also received the test results and learned that Duk-pal was indeed the biological son of Song-min. But could the same person really undergo such a big change? Se-kyung watched as Duk-pal showed off on the basketball court. He became more suspicious of his identity. Duk-pal quickly won the match and warned Hyuni and everyone present not to gossip or mock behind his back. Se-kyung, in order to continue observing Duk-pal, agreed to help him with his studies, but Duk-pal had to fulfill one unconditional request from Se-kyung. As for the request, he hadn't thought of it yet. That night, the two of them started studying, and they talked about the school violence committee. Se-kyung believed that it was a useless system, because it was influenced by the school's reputation, parental constraints, and other factors, making it difficult to be effective. If one wants to punish the perpetrators, they should go to the police station. Only then will the perpetrators be afraid of having a criminal record. Yet, the perpetrators could also file a lawsuit and falsely claim that they were also bullied by the victim. This would result in a long legal battle.
그럼 뭐가 제일 좋은 응징이냐? 그냥 죽여.
In fact, this shows that Se-kyung is not a well-behaved child, but he is indeed the top student in the school. As long as it helps him improve his grades, that's all that matters. After the study session, the two of them went to a convenience store. For a late-night snack, Se-kyung had a pineapple cake. He suddenly remembered that Song Yi-hyun is allergic to pineapples. Even a small piece would cause difficulty in breathing. He intended to test Duk-pal with the pineapple, but at a critical moment, Se-kyung still intervened to stop him. However, Duk-pal was unaware of Song Yi-hyun's allergy history and casually sucked on a jelly. Se-kyung snatched it away to inspect it. He discovered that it also contained pineapple. The next moment, Duk-pal struggled to breathe and collapsed on the ground, thanks to Se-kyung, who promptly took him to the hospital. But Duk-pal's behavior further confirmed to Se-kyung that he wasn't Yi-hyun. If what Duk-pal said was true, that he suffered a head injury leading to amnesia, the nanny would have reminded him of his allergy history. Se-kyung's urgency to find the truth was actually because Yi-hyun sought his help a few days before committing suicide. He drove Yi-hyun away, and even said things like, "It's your fault for being bullied." That's why Se-kyung felt immense guilt and had been wanting to apologize. After learning about Yi-hyun's suicide, Duk-pal promised him that the previous Yi-hyun would definitely come back, and when he does, Se-kyung can apologize in person. As a condition for the exchange, Se-kyung must help Duk-pal get into university, or else when Yi-hyun returns, he would be terrified by Duk-pal's report card. The two of them started their tutoring sessions, but Secretary Lee had asked Dong-soo to teach Duk-pal a lesson. On this day, Dong-soo was planning to take action. He overheard Jae-min and his henchmen mentioning the name of their boss. They said that a high school student had learned a few moves from the martial arts master Kim Duk-pal of the Chilsung gang. Dong-soo didn't pay much attention to this matter, because Duk-pal was indeed nosy before his death, and Dong-soo had other tasks to attend to. Due to a shortage of manpower in the organization, Dong-soo called Jae-min to join him in the operation. When Duk-pal arrived at his doorstep, he saw Dong-soo's men kidnapping Song-min. Duk-pal and Se-kyung quickly tried to stop it. Jae-min was even more frightened. He didn't expect that this trip was for kidnapping. Jae-min, fearing trouble, opened the car door and escaped in the chaos. Meanwhile, Se-kyung and Duk-pal fought hard to protect Song-min. There was a significant gap in physical strength between adults and high school students. Duk-pal was not at an advantage in a fight, let alone Se-kyung, who was a weak scholar. Fortunately, the police car arrived at the scene in time. Duk-pal suspected Secretary Lee was behind it, but didn't disclose the true situation to the police. He chose to withdraw the report, because if the police investigated the kidnappers, it might expose that Song Yi-hyun was the illegitimate child of Chairman Bae Cheolmin from OK Construction. Duk-pal intended to punish Secretary Lee in his own way. It was getting dark, and Se-kyung had to return home quickly. He lied to his father, claiming to have been robbed by thugs, in an attempt to hide the injuries on his face. Surprisingly, his father asked Se-kyung to take him to the scene of the incident. Having been a prosecutor for so many years, he could tell his son was lying. Under his father's pressure, Se-kyung fainted. The doctor diagnosed it as a brief fainting spell caused by excessive stress. Se-kyung's mother, who is overseas, pleads with her husband not to blame Se-kyung excessively, as it may drive their child crazy. On the other hand, Duk-pal begins to investigate Secretary Lee, although she holds the title of secretary. OK Construction cannot find any information about her. The salaries of the housekeeper and the driver are directly paid by the company, and they cannot reach Secretary Lee personally. Duk Pal can't find any information about her, but his whereabouts or his expenses on purchases were clear to Secretary Lee. The information on both sides doesn't match. Secretary Lee is angry because the kidnapping plan failed and issues a notice to him. Dong-soo guarantees to resolve this matter and punish Jae-min severely. Meanwhile, in Hansong High School, Duk Pal can't contact Jae-min, and he is unaware of his involvement in the kidnapping, assuming that he is skipping classes again. After a few days of rest, Se-kyung returns to the campus and continues to help Duk Pal with his studies. Duk Pal feels guilty about Se-kyung getting injured and is determined to teach him self-defense. They become good friends. Se-kyung's father realizes that something is wrong with his son. He investigates Son Yi-hyun's identity and doesn't want Se-kyung to be friends with an illegitimate child. On the other side, Jae-min is afraid of the incident that happened that night escalating. He tries to gather information from the driver at Duk Pal's house, but the driver refuses to speak. Jae-min can't get any answer. On this evening, Se-kyung goes home with Duk Pal. He noticed Jae-min hanging around nearby. Se-kyung pretended not to see him. Jae-min called out to Duk Pal. He didn't expect Duk Pal to live in such a luxurious mansion. The three of them went to a cafe to talk. Jae-min felt relieved when he learned that the other party had cancelled the police report. He hadn't eaten a meal in the past 2 days. Duk Pal knew that Jae-min's parents didn't care about him at all. He invited Jae-min to have a meal at his house, but Se-kyung disapproved of his behavior. He reminded Jae-min to leave quickly, but Jae-min couldn't understand his hint. Jae-min wanted to stay overnight at Duk Pal's house because the heating in his own house was not working. Duk Pal was willing to accommodate Jae-min for one night, but Se-kyung was unhappy. He also wanted to stay at Duk Pal's house because his mother was returning from England today. Se-kyung could lie to his father and say that he would stay in a hotel with his mother tonight. Se-kyung's mother doesn't object to her son's normal socializing and would definitely cooperate with him to deceive his father. In the end, both of them stayed at Duk Pal's house, but Hong Jae-min took Duk Pal's kindness for granted. He still believed that the harm to Son Yi-hyun was just a joke. After all, Duk Pal had also beaten him up, so they were even. While things are never that simple, he indirectly caused the death of Son Yi-hyun. Jae-min's harm to Son Yi-hyun cannot be easily offset. Duk Pal hasn't forgiven him, and has no right to forgive on behalf of Son Yi-hyun. As for the reason Se-kyung wanted to stay overnight, it was because he saw Jae-min's face that night, and knew he was involved in the kidnapping. Jae-min explained that he was unaware of the situation, and he reported it to the police after escaping. Jae-min has his own logic when it comes to issues like bullying and kidnapping. He believes that as long as the outcome is good, the process doesn't matter. Since Son Yi-hyun didn't die, and Song Min wasn't kidnapped, he shouldn't face any punishment. Duk Pal overheard their conversation. He demanded Jae-min's cooperation to catch the people who wanted to kidnap Song Min. Before Duk Pal could take action, Dong-soo's people took the initiative. Although Se-kyung stumbled upon the kidnapping scene, he didn't have the ability to stop them. Meanwhile, Duk Pal was tied up in front of Dong-soo. He looked at his former trusted subordinate, wanting to know how he got involved with Secretary Lee. But Dong-soo recognized him as the person who caused the accident that injured their boss, and his subordinates wanted to avenge their leader. So they were about to attack Duk Pal. They tried to fight a high school student, but they were beaten up, and it was Fat Brother who finally defeated Duk Pal. Dong-soo observed from the side, recognizing Duk Pal's moves and his knowledge of the Chilsun gang. He speculated that this high school student must be his boss's disciple. Meanwhile, Duk Pal believed that Dong-soo had betrayed the Chilsun gang by establishing his own faction. He interrogated him about the whereabouts of their boss, Kim Chil-sung, asking if Dong-soo had killed him. Dong-soo didn't want to be misunderstood. He explained that after Duk Pal's supposed death, 3 nearby factions joined forces to attack the Chilsun gang. Their leader, Kim Chil-sung, was severely injured and disappeared during his hospitalization. Dong-soo had to take charge and stabilize the situation while continuing to inquire about their leader's whereabouts. On the other hand, Se-kyung was worried about how to rescue Duk Pal. The other party had warned him not to call the police without permission. In the midst of his dilemma, Se-kyung's father sent him a message, prohibiting him from going to the study room after school, and mentioning that a private tutor had been arranged to pick him up in 5 minutes. Se-kyung sat there and didn't want to go back. Just then, Jae-min passed by. It turned out that the school lackeys, under Dong-soo's instructions, wanted to capture Jae-min and punish him. Jae-min managed to escape, caught the distracted Se-kyung, and pulled him into a small alley garage to hide until the pursuing lackeys dispersed. Jae-min then told Se-kyung that the gangsters were planning to kidnap Song Min. Se-kyung was shocked that after capturing Dukpal, they were planning to kidnap Song-min. Jae-min, upon hearing about Dukpal's danger, guessed that he was taken to the Shinho Hotel, which was Dong-su's stronghold. Se-kyung had no other choice but to prepare to take risks and rescue him. He initially wanted to bring Jae-min along, but the latter was unwilling to help. Se-kyung hailed a taxi and went to the Shinho Hotel alone, ignoring his father's text message, and reminded Dukpal's driver to contact the bodyguards to protect Song-min. Shortly after, Fat Brother and his men arrived at Song Yi-hyun's house and found a large number of bodyguards gathered there. They stayed in ambush, waiting for the right moment. Secretary Lee's plan was simple. First, send Song-min to a mental hospital, and then send Song Yi-hyun abroad for studies. After going abroad, even if Song Yi-hyun had any problems, the chairman couldn't blame Secretary Lee for it. But now, Dong-su can't harm Song Yi-hyun. He captured Song Yi-hyun, only to facilitate the kidnapping of Song-min. Dukpal provoked him, asking him to disband the Dong-su faction and go back to their hometown to open a restaurant for a peaceful life. Dong-su was about to teach this guy a lesson, but Dukpal pointed out the location of his old injury and revealed something that only Dukpal knew. Dong-su had some doubts about the other person's identity, and Dukpal asked Dong-su to consider handing over Secretary Lee. After saying what he wanted to say, he got up and left. He ran into Se-kyung and his father at the door. It turned out that Se-kyung intentionally brought his father there and asked him to rescue his friend. Se-kyung's father, seeing that Dukpal was fine, went to talk to Dong-su, forcing him to withdraw his men from Song Yi-hyun's house. Dong-su complied, but wouldn't stop there. Back then, when the gang couldn't gather enough money for Chilsung's surgery fee, it was Secretary Lee who proposed a deal. She promised that if Dong-su helped her with something, she would help pay off the hospital fees. Since he had taken advantage of her offer, Dong-su couldn't go back on his word. However, he really couldn't figure out Dukpal's identity. On the other hand, although Se-kyung's father helped, he also used it as leverage. He ordered Se-kyung to stay away from Dukpal and asked his son to study with Hyuni. But Se-kyung doesn't want to break his promise. He gave Dukpal a number so that he could ask for help with any difficult questions. The promise to help him get into college is still valid, although Dukpal understands Se-kyung's father's desire to keep his son away from the underworld. He feels a bit sad seeing Se-kyung always with Hyuni. Other classmates discuss that Hyuni's grandfather is an official. The top student in the school is the son of a prosecutor, and the second-ranked student is the grandson of an official. Regular people can't even compare. In addition to that, Hong Jae-min hasn't been attending classes because some guys are waiting for him everywhere, scaring him from showing up. On the day of taking graduation photos, the school organized a trip to Hyeonnam Park for photography. Dukpal looks forward to school activities, so he puts aside his worries and plays games with his classmates. He heard someone saw Jae-min working at a convenience store, so Dukpal immediately went to talk to him. After finding out the exact location,
내가 용서를 안 했는데 어디 학교를 그만둬? 나와라. 내가 해결해 줄 테니까.
Just then, Se-kyung called, and from the tone of his voice, it seemed like Se-kyung was at the place where Song Yi-hyun committed suicide. Dukpal immediately rushed there and realized that Se-kyung was feeling unhappy because of his father, so he planned to take the top student out to relax. He saw Dong-su on the train, but Dukpal didn't want to ruin Se-kyung's mood, so he didn't approach Dong-su. Dukpal took him to play in Dong-hee as planned, while Dong-su and Fat Brother secretly followed them. They monitored him from daytime until evening. Dukpal pretended not to see, and played with Se-kyung the whole day, because they were underage, and couldn't stay in a hotel. Dukpal took Se-kyung to a hotel they used to visit frequently. He had something on the hotel owner, so he easily obtained the key. Meanwhile, Dong-su and the other person checked into the adjacent room, discussing how to capture Dukpal and send him abroad on a plane. As for Dukpal, he finally had the chance to ask Se-kyung what had happened. In fact, it was because of Se-kyung's father's desire for control and high expectations for his son that Se-kyung felt compelled to contemplate suicide. Se-kyung has been living in a high-pressure environment since birth, and he has a tendency towards depression. He has been enduring it for many years. He discovered that his father had actually asked Hyuni to secretly film his every move at school, and had installed hidden cameras in his bedroom. Se-kyung could no longer tolerate it, so he had a heated argument with his father and ran away. Dukpal and Se-kyung's father are of the same age, and Dukpal speculates that Se-kyung's father was also strictly controlled by his own father. During his childhood, leading him to adopt misguided educational methods. Dukpal is determined to change Se-kyung's father and help repair the relationship between father and son. So, after Se-kyung fell asleep, he took the other person's phone and contacted Se-kyung's father.
세경이가 마음의 준비를 마치고 아버지와 얘기하고 싶을 때 그때 말씀 나누십시오.
Immediately after, Dukpal contacted Fat Brother and told them not to hide, but to come upstairs for a conversation. Although Dukpal's soul is trapped in a high schooler's body, there is something called bloodline suppression. When Dong-soo and the other person hear his command, they can't help but obey. Dukpal has already revealed many secrets of the Chilsum gang, but these two people still don't trust him. He started talking about Fat Brother's ancestors for generations, and Dukpal even knew how many acres of land their ancestral home had. He even knew which restaurant they had their first meeting in, and what dishes they ordered.
사실은 내가
네가 득팔 형님
김득팔
아들인걸.
With things reaching this point, Dukpal could only act as his own son. After temporarily resolving this trouble, the driver would come to pick them up for school. Dukpal also asked Fat Brother to inform their schoolmates not to continue harassing Jae-min. The teacher suddenly came and called Dukpal and Se-kyung to the office. It turned out that Se-kyung's father had come and wanted to hold a school violence committee meeting to punish Dukpal for taking his son out overnight. Se-kyung had a panic attack and fainted. Dukpal couldn't bear to see it and decided to have a proper conversation with Se-kyung's father and reveal the incident where Se-kyung almost attempted suicide. However, Se-kyung's father believed that receiving psychological treatment would be enough. He questioned how Se-kyung could grow into a real man if he couldn't handle even this level of pressure. Dukpal urged Se-kyung's father to reflect on himself and emphasized that he should seek psychological treatment instead of Se-kyung. After he finished speaking, he went back to the medical room to visit Se-kyung. Se-kyung's father called the principal. Se-kyung was unaware of his father's intention for revenge, but he was instead greatly encouraged by Dukpal. He drove away Hyuni and continued to help Dukpal with his studies. On the other side, although lackeys received Fat Brother's command, they were unwilling to let Jae-min go so easily. They cornered each other in a narrow alley, and Jae-min was slightly injured. In fact, Jae-min has always regarded these people as his true brothers. They have not yet shown the loyalty that Dukpal has, because Secretary Lee hasn't been delivering medicine to Song-min, and Song Yi-hyun's mother is going crazy every day. Dukpal checked the label on the medicine box and prepared to go to the pharmacy to buy medicine for Song-min. However, he learned from the pharmacist that this type of medication, used for treating depression and impaired motivation, is a potent drug not commonly used domestically. Due to its severe side effects and addictive nature, prolonged use can worsen the condition. Dukpal was very angry. Secretary Lee was trying to drive Song-min into a mental illness. It seems that Song Yi-hyun's mother's current state is entirely caused by her. Since Secretary Lee obtains the medication in Song-min's name, it would be challenging to handle the situation, even if they reported it to the police. Dukpal immediately contacted Dong-soo. He wanted to know how to find Secretary Lee. Dong-soo stated that this woman is very cautious and always leaves messages at the intermediary contact point whenever they meet. Coincidentally, just as Dong-soo sent out the signal, Secretary Lee will come for a meeting today. Dukpal took the opportunity to ask Dong-soo to capture Secretary Lee and bring her to him. The lackeys had reservations about this, because the buildings managed by Dong-soo's faction belonged to Secretary Lee. If we capture her, our organization will be destroyed, and everyone will end up homeless. Soon Secretary Lee appeared, and Dong-soo considered Dukpal as family. He would definitely not let the person who harmed sister-in-law Song-min go unpunished. He decided to disband the gang, and gave Secretary Lee 3 days to apologize to Dukpal, as repayment for her medical expenses. If Secretary Lee doesn't apologize after the 3-day deadline, Dong-soo will personally take her to meet Dukpal. Secretary Lee was completely stunned. How did Song-min become your sister-in-law? Song Yi-hyun is Chairman Bae's illegitimate child. Dong-soo ordered his subordinates to drag Secretary Lee out. Secretary Lee hurriedly leaves the building. Coincidentally, she runs into Jae-min's group of henchmen. They are discussing how to demand tracking expenses from Dong-soo. They also mention the name of Song Yi-hyun. Secretary Lee plans to use these thugs, but before she can make a move, Se-kyung's father, along with the principal, issues a school violence committee document against Dukpal, accusing him of luring Se-kyung to stay overnight outside, trying to lead his classmates astray, and threatening Hyuni, who wants to help Se-kyung. Dukpal tries to contact Se-kyung as a witness, but discovers that her phone is turned off. Shortly after, several thugs, under Secretary Lee's instructions, go to the police station to accuse Duk-pal of school bullying. The thugs delete the video of Song Yi-hyun being bullied, and also bribe the eyewitness who saw Duk-pal hitting them. After Secretary Lee finishes all of this, she arranges a meeting with Duk-pal in the parking lot. She presents two options: let Duk-pal decide to study abroad, or was he locked up in a juvenile detention center for self-reflection due to bullying. Of course, Duk-pal will not go abroad. If he leaves, Song-min will be in danger. On the other side, Se-kyung finally receives permission to return to school and attend classes. He only then discovers that his father convened the school violence committee and transferred him to class 1 where Hyuni is. Several female classmates who are close to Duk-pal don't believe that he would bully Se-kyung and voluntarily offer to help Duk-pal with his studies. Se-kyung applies to the principal to withdraw the school violence committee and return to his original class to continue attending classes. However, in order to successfully cancel the school violence committee, he must obtain his guardian's signature. Se-kyung expresses that he will personally resolve this matter. On that day, Jae-min also returns to school, and he hears about Duk-pal being sued by his henchmen. To avoid alarming other classmates, Duk-pal and Se-kyung take Jae-min to the playground and briefly explain the current situation. Secretary Lee, together with several troublesome students, wants to turn the victim of campus violence into the perpetrator. Jae-min speculates on the individuals who sued Duk-pal. They are definitely playing pool in the billiards hall right now. Duk-pal finds those troublemaking students and urges them to immediately withdraw the lawsuit and return to school. If they don't cooperate, Duk-pal will also countersue. The truth of who the real victim is will definitely come to light. While these thugs have taken money from Secretary Lee, and they definitely won't be willing to return it, even if Duk-pal countersues, the people who have been bullied by them won't testify out of fear of retaliation. Therefore, the key is to persuade Jae-min to sue Duk-pal together. They are definitely able to deceive the police. After the troublemaking students make up their minds, they quickly arrange to meet Jae-min at a nearby park. After experiencing these days of turmoil, Jae-min doesn't want to cooperate with them. Yellow-haired boy and the others sneer. You were the one who bullied Song Yi-hyun in the beginning, all because of money. Now you're pretending to be a good person. The long-forgotten scenes flash through his mind, and at this moment, Jae-min realizes how inappropriate his jokes were. So yellow-haired boy instigates from the side. If Song Yi-hyun goes to the police station to countersue, do you think you can get away with it? The current situation is indeed favorable for the thugs, as they not only found witnesses, but also obtained medical evidence from the previous injury inflicted by Jae-min, using it to their advantage. On the other hand, Duk-pal doesn't have any evidence, except for Song Yi-hyun's diary. Fortunately, Se-kyung managed to convince his mother to sign, and successfully revoked the school violence committee. Duk-pal goes to find Dong-soo and Fat Brother, asking them to capture Secretary Lee, and find a way to expose her misdeeds to Chairman Bae. In the evening, Dong-soo suddenly receives news that someone spotted Chilsung in Gangneung, and he is safe and sound, but Secretary Lee's whereabouts are unknown. Fat Brother has been waiting for a long time, but couldn't meet anyone, so the two can only comfort Duk-pal and tell him not to overthink it and focus on preparing for exams. However, those thugs not only didn't withdraw the lawsuit, but the case was quickly handed over to the prosecutor's office. As it involved minors, the police initially wanted to contact the guardian, but Chairman Bae couldn't be reached as he was abroad. The Seoul District Prosecutor's Office Criminal Coordination Unit has scheduled the coordination time for Monday. The progress of the entire case is too rapid. Even the police find it strange. Meanwhile, Se-kyung quickly learns the reason. It turns out his father had contacted the prosecutor's office, urging for a swift resolution of Duk-pal's case. Se-kyung's father even pressured Se-kyung himself. If you dare to testify for Duk-pal, then you can no longer be my son. Se-kyung hesitated throughout the whole night. He went to talk to Jae-min early the next day. He had noticed that Jae-min had been observing Duk-pal closely, so he suspected that Jae-min might have been bribed to join them in suing Duk-pal. Jae-min was angry. He just hoped that Duk-pal could keep his involvement in the bullying hidden from the police. Se-kyung said, I have a plan. If you can get hold of their phones, retrieve the bullying videos as evidence and submit them, we can stop all of this from happening. Se-kyung also asked Jae-min to consider, if Duk-pal were to sue you with the police, he wouldn't keep an eye on you at school, and he would forgive your involvement in the kidnapping of Song-min. Se-kyung handed the decision-making power to Jae-min, but Jae-min didn't do anything. Duk-pal didn't blame Jae-min when he found out. As long as he didn't join the lawsuit, it was fine. Jae-min felt even more guilty in his heart. In fact, not long ago, he received a bank book from his father, containing the savings for his college tuition. He had been a jerk for too long, and didn't want to disappoint his family anymore, so he was afraid that testifying for Dukpal would make him expelled from school, and he would lose the opportunity to graduate from high school completely.
미안해. 나 너무 무서워.
Dukpal took Jae-min home for a meal, and instructed him to start anew, and to apologize to the real Song Yi-hyun when he returns. Dukpal believed that Jae-min could change, and the trust he unconditionally placed in him moved Jae-min deeply. Jae-min's parents never cared for him and his sister since childhood, and no one had ever told Jae-min, "I believe you can change." On the other hand, Dukpal had been taking care of Song-min, and her health improved significantly after she stopped taking medication. He also learned from Song-min that Secretary Lee is in a romantic relationship with Chairman Bae. The chairman even bought a house for Secretary Lee. Dukpal immediately sent the apartment address to Dong-soo and instructed them to go and catch Secretary Lee. As long as they apprehend this woman, those students who filed the lawsuit will be in chaos. However, when Dong-soo arrived at the scene, they discovered that the house had been idle for a long time. At the same time, Jae-min woke up early. He tidied up the room and prepared breakfast for his sister in advance. After completing everything, Jae-min called yellow-haired boy.
나 고소할게. 어디로 가면 돼?
Dukpal was shocked to see Jae-min appear, but Jae-min was not involved in the lawsuit. Instead, he snatched yellow-haired boy's backpack and threw it to Dukpal, and revealed this guy's tablet password. Jae-min tangled with a few gangsters, while Dukpal opened the tablet to check. Yellow-haired boy was afraid of the embarrassing exposure, and quickly rushed to stop it. He was knocked down by Dukpal's punches. The people from the prosecutor's office heard the commotion and quickly arrived. Dukpal didn't waste time on words. He directly presented the video to them. Each frame was shocking. They forced Song Yi-hyun to eat glue sticks. They ruthlessly beat Song Yi-hyun without any limits. Jae-min stepped forward and admitted to being one of the perpetrators. He had been bullying Song Yi-hyun, together with yellow-haired boy and others, and even drove him to attempt suicide. The previous Jae-min always made excuses, avoiding the harm he caused to Song Yi-hyun, thinking that the victim was too weak. But now he wanted to change, to receive punishment and start anew. The bullies were taken away by the police. Meanwhile, Dukpal received a text message from the nanny, informing him that Song-min was going to be discharged from the hospital, which actually happened while he was asleep. Chil-sung found Song-min and informed her that Dukpal had encountered many troubles, but he had been trying his best to protect his mother. As parents, they shouldn't have let their 19-year-old son bear so much. Dukpal didn't know the reasons behind it, so he was prepared to go and find out. Meanwhile, Jae-min, who was in the car, watched him leave, but then he saw Song Yi-hyun standing there, the one with long hair, the one who always kept his head down. Jae-min instinctively apologized to him, not knowing what was going on. Dukpal hurriedly arrived at the hospital and found Chil-sung there. Dukpal couldn't change his old habits, and immediately knelt down in front of Chil-sung, and then expressed concern for his well-being. Chil-sung had initially doubted where Dukpal's son came from, but after seeing his behavior, not only did his doubts disappear, but he also saw through that the high school student in front of him was Dukpal. The two of them sat on a bench. Dukpal hinted to Chil-sung that the deceased is already gone. "I stayed here to protect this kid, and when the time is right, I will naturally leave." After seeing off Chil-sung, Dukpal went to seek the doctor's opinion, and the doctor agreed to discharge Song-min. But during this period, she still needs to go to the clinic for injections and register at the rehabilitation center. Since the doctor didn't object, Dukpal proceeded to complete the discharge procedures for Song-min. Just as he was about to take her home, he noticed an advertisement on a taxi. It turns out that today is the world's largest construction exposition. Dukpal realized that this is his only chance to meet Chairman Bae, so he immediately got into a taxi and informed Dong-soo to meet at the airport. Dukpal, along with Dong-soo, intercepted Chairman Bae, and Secretary Lee quickly tried to escape, but Dukpal caught her immediately. The group went to a nearby Chinese restaurant to have a conversation. Dukpal exposed Secretary Lee's crimes to Chairman Bae. Chairman Bae is a figure in the political arena. Seeing Secretary Lee so flustered, he knew that Dukpal was not lying, kidnapping and forcing others into drug addiction. Such ugly deeds, if they were exploited by malicious individuals, would definitely harm the stock price of OK Construction. Although Chairman Bae doesn't care about Song-min and her son, he cares about the company's interests. Hence, he made Secretary Lee kneel down. and apologized to Dukpal. Dukpal poured tea over the secretary's head, and warned her to stay away from Song Min and her son. After saying his piece, Dukpal prepared to leave, but Chairman Bay suddenly stopped him, and asked Dukpal if he wanted to obtain household registration. Dukpal refused. As an adult who neglects children, they are not qualified to be a parent. Dukpal pushed open the door and left gracefully.
돌아오니까 어떠냐?
So, what Jae-min saw wasn't an illusion. Lee Hyun, who has been hiding deep in his consciousness, finally found the courage to come out. There is still a week left until everything returns to normal. Dukpal wants to make use of this time to bid farewell to everyone properly. Meanwhile, Se-kyung has been spending these days reading many online novels. He confirms that within Song Yi-hyun's body, another person's soul is hidden. That's why the DNA test showed no problems. Se-kyung revealed the truth, but Dukpal didn't admit it. To avoid causing trouble for Song Yi-hyun upon his return, the week is coming to an end quickly. Tomorrow is the last day. Yi-hyun hopes that Dukpal will tell Se-kyung the truth. After all, they are good friends. He shouldn't be kept in the dark. So, the next day, Dukpal takes Se-kyung to his own urn, and honestly explains the whole story. Se-kyung immediately realized, since Dukpal's physical body has already died, what would happen to Yi-hyun's soul once he returns? Se-kyung hasn't fully processed this fact, but he already sees Yi-hyun's soul. After Dukpal leaves the columbarium to reunite with his friends, he unexpectedly encounters Dong-soo. Seeing tears in Dong-soo's eyes, Dukpal knows that Dong-soo has also guessed the truth. He takes his former subordinate to nearby places to reminisce. Finally, Se-kyung has the opportunity to apologize to Song Yi-hyun. Yi-hyun had asked for his help before his suicide attempt, hoping to use Se-kyung's father's influence to convene a committee on school violence. But Se-kyung was too cowardly at that time, lacking the courage to lend a helping hand. He also disliked how Yi-hyun always saw through his disguises, seeing beyond his glossy appearance as the prosecutor's son, and uncovering a cowardly soul within. At that time, Se-kyung felt embarrassed, which led him to hurt Yi-hyun with his words. Now, the two best friends reconcile officially, as the last day is about to come to an end. Yi-hyun, however, asks Dukpal to stay behind, as he can see his own happiness, which already brings him great satisfaction. In fact, since the day everything ended on the bridge, Yi-hyun had already decided to let go of everything, the life that follows. He considers it a gift for Dukpal. In the end, the gangster boss finally succeeds in getting into university. The series ends at this point. The ending is somewhat unexpected, but it is also within reason. After all, Dukpal was living a good life. Before he met Yi-hyun, there was no reason for him to die like that. Perhaps the meaning of this exchange was simply to let Yi-hyun see the possibility of happiness, to tell him that if he resists, there might be different outcomes. Dukpal showed him a different way of life, and also helped Yi-hyun punish the wrongdoers. In a sense, it can be considered a happy ending. But unfortunately, the price paid by the bullies was too insignificant. It can never make up for the fact that Yi-hyun died at the age of 19. If you like my channel, please subscribe to it.